I think the starters were about to arrive, so I thought, oh, I'll go and do a check. It had been sort of 20 minutes or so before we'd last checked, so I thought I'll go and do a check before the food arrived. So I just walked out of the restaurant up the hill. I passed Jerry, who was talking to one of his tennis friends at the time, and then after I'd passed Jerry, at the top of the road, I just saw somebody walking across the top of the road, so I was a reasonable distance away from them, and that person was carrying a child.
And you say a person, male or female?
Oh, a male.
And just describe that individual to us.
It's about probably 5'8" tall. He was taller than me, but not 6 foot, and so between those two. He was wearing quite a lot of clothes, and that's one thing in hindsight, again, I think was quite odd, because tourists, when they're abroad, Brits abroad would always have crop trousers or shorts or something, and he had sort of a big heavy jacket and trousers on. And the hair, the one thing that I remember a lot is the hair. It did seem to have quite a lot of dark, reasonably long to the neck hair.
Describe exactly what he's carrying, what you can see.
Well, I could tell it was a child, and I could see the feet and sort of the feet and the bottom of the pyjamas. But I just thought, that child's not got any shoes on. You could see the feet, and it was quite a cold night in Portugal in May. It's not actually that warm. I know I'd got a big jumper on, and I can remember thinking, oh, that parent's not a particularly good parent. They've not wrapped them up.
And could you tell whether it was a boy or a girl?
Only because the pyjamas had a pinky aspect to them, so you'd presume a girl. It was actually quite cold.
From your sketch, he appears to be carrying the child in a sort of unusual way.
Yeah, I was carrying sort of across the body like that. I suppose in hindsight you probably think somebody would carry them more against the shoulder.
And I have to ask you this, are you absolutely sure of what you saw? Because it was a long time ago, and it was only for a brief period.
A brief period, but at the time I knew what I'd seen. I'd gave that information to the police, and because of the pyjamas, I'm absolutely convinced that is what I saw.
According to the McCann timeline, at about 9:30, Matt Oldfield is the next to check on the children. Remember, Jerry McCann says he had closed the bedroom door, but Matt Oldfield says he finds it open. He doesn't go in the room. He sees the twins but can't see Madeleine's bed. Because there's no noise, he assumes everything's okay. At about 10, it's Kate McCann's turn to check on the children. The bedroom door is still open. As she closes it, she feels a draft and knows something is wrong. A shutter on the side of the apartment they couldn't see from the tapas bar is open. Madeleine is missing. Kate McCann says she searches the flat 3 times before raising the alarm. Jane Tanner says that by this time she's already back in her apartment.
I went out to the front door of our apartment, and I saw Rachel came and said, oh, Madeleine's gone. And so that was the first that I heard about it. And then I saw Kate and Fiona running around shouting Madeleine, and Kate said to me, Jane, Madeleine's gone, Madeleine's gone. And that was the first that I heard.
What time was that about?
I'm not sure. It would be 10ish, around 10ish.
And now all of a sudden what you've seen...
Yeah, it was as soon as Rachel said to me, Madeleine's gone, this person sort of came into my head. I hadn't given it a second thought up to that point, but then this person I suddenly thought, oh, well, that person was a bit odd. Suddenly Madeleine's not there, and I've seen somebody that then you think, oh, that maybe was a bit odd. It just seems too much of a coincidence.
The McCanns say they ask Matt Oldfield to call the police at 10:15 from the Ocean Club front desk. When the police don't appear, they say someone from the group goes back to the front desk to see what's happening. The police say the first call they receive was about 10:40. In the chaos, it's clear there is some confusion about the exact times. Remember, Portugal and Britain are on the same time. I have spoken to someone who was staying very close to flat 5A on the night of May the 3rd. She says the first that she was aware of a missing child was 10:30, and she's sure of that because she says the BBC 10 o'clock news had just finished. She says that she heard Kate McCann sobbing, repeating over and over again, "We've let her down." She also says that she heard the first Portuguese policeman arrive, and he said she must have walked out because there's no sign of a break-in. Initially, the flat isn't treated as a crime scene, and police would later be criticised for not sealing it off.
There had been quite a few people in the apartment, but not into the bedroom. That was limited to myself, Kate, I think 2 of our friends, the 2 GNR officers, and I think the translator. I was certainly saying to people to stay out of the room. There was no sealing off of the room, and the twins were still sleeping in their cots. So we tried to leave it as undisturbed as possible, and they slept very soundly until we moved them out of the cots into the other apartment, which does make me wonder about whether there was any substances used to keep them asleep.
The police didn't follow this up with tests. Meanwhile, late on May the 3rd, the McCanns begin calling home.
I think it would be about 11:30, and I'm guessing now, I might be wrong. There was a phone call, and it was Jerry on the phone, and he said, "It's a disaster. It's a disaster." And he was quite hysterical.
He's absolutely uncontrollable. He's howling and screaming down the phone. They've taken her. She's gone.
He was walking the streets of Praia da Luz at 3:30. I think most of the search party had disbanded by then, and he was still crying his eyes out.
What was Kate like? What sort of state was she in?
She was distressed, obviously. She just asked me if I had the telephone number of Father Paul Seddon. Paul Seddon is a friend of theirs who's a Catholic priest who actually married Jerry and Kate and baptised Madeleine. And for some reason, at that stage, Kate needed to make contact with Paul. She needed I suppose, the strength that comes from having faith.
We texted a couple of times, just, pray for us, pray for Madeleine.
By dawn, a major search of the whole resort is underway. These officers are from the GNR, the Uniformed Portuguese Police, but it's the investigation branch, the Polícia Judiciária, or PJs, who are now in charge of the hunt for Madeleine McCann.
We would again like to appeal for any information, however small, that may lead to the safe return of Madeleine.
First appeals are made. But what we didn't know at the time was that some Portuguese detectives are already telling